Fun fact, every self-described socialist to whom I've ever spoken in my 40 years of living about what their ultimate goal is, it's always been the same answer: communism.
No more food.
Another fun fact, I'm scared of three things in life: heights, dinosaurs, and communism. It's horrible for everyone. Over 160 million dead and counting. And yeah, I know, but that wasn't real communism, and killing the kulaks to spur on civil war and starve to death millions upon millions of people is moral compared to Hitler.
Really, nigga?
The point I'm making here, those little bourgeoisie Marxists pretending to be the proletariat are going to hate communism. These little white hipster bastards are going to hate communism. Once they find out that they're not allowed to possess material consumer items that make them appear to have status over others, it's going to be like,
no, I don't want that.
Let's just face the facts here. The average communist, quote unquote, is a walking billboard for name brand designer items and double soy half-calf mocha caramel frappuccinos topped with vegan whipped cream, taking pictures of it on their iPhone for Instagram likes. These are the idiots who show up to places like Chaz preaching some form of Marxism for the masses, but only play pretend at the revolution because they have to be back home by 7 p.m. for spaghetti night.
His palm spaghetti, knees weak, arms spaghetti. There's vomit on his sweater spaghetti. Mom spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm spaghetti.
Though that's the bulk of the white Marxists, shouting Black Lives Matter for attention so they're seen as the most virtuous, when the most they've ever suffered in life under capitalism was having to earn a B average in critical theory before daddy would give them the Visa Platinum. But then there's the black folks of Black Lives Matter and who vote constantly for progressive Democrats. Black Lives Matter, of course, being objectively a Marxist campaign designed with the sole intent to sow division in America in the hope of fomenting a revolution. We all know this is true. They've admitted it so many times it makes Bill Clinton cringe.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
Communism for black people, it's going to be.
You know what? I'm about to say it.
Say it.
Worse than slavery for black people. But communism is good. Vouch says so. It will enforce true equality and be the best thing to ever happen for the minority class in all Western nations. Communism is a real utopia. Just wait until it's really tried. For real. For the first time ever. I'm personally sick and tired of dipshit phony intellectuals considered the intelligentsia of the globe because they parrot a few buzzwords like equality, liberation, and Black Lives Matter while towing the progressive party line. I've been dealing with these mental midgets since school. Proto SJWs in the early 2000s coming up to me like,
Brian, what are y'all working on in Evo Bio?
oh, we're just mapping heredity equations by calculating gene flow and genetic drift to measure the allelic frequency changes of beetle populations in Scandinavian countries affected by the cold winter. And they'd be like,
well, isn't that special?
I ask what they're doing and it's nonsense like,
Oh, we're learning how to dismantle systems of oppression by first going after the white male supremacist patriarchal structure of the West that was built to profit off of people's labor while restricting minority access to the same societal benefits experienced by white people.
okay then. And that's how it still is, just to a much worse extent. Listen and nod in agreement with a Marxist professor telling you how awful whites are and how awful Western society is, and you're educated. You was educated.
I don't think a lot of people was educated.
Actually study and learn and put that knowledge into action in an empirical, tangible way, well, you're just supporting the same systems of oppression and are a brainwashed idiot. So fuck you, I'm sick of these communists pretending that they're intelligent people because they paid for some social theory degree and quite literally passed their courses by agreeing with the professor. Vanity stroking vanity.
You feel that sting, big boy, huh? That's pride fucking with you, see?
A whole lot of pride these people have for so little accomplished in their educational tenure. But I digress. My point being, communism is a hellscape from which you cannot escape. unless you tie a bunch of fucking tires together and float your family across the ocean to Florida and hope you don't get eaten by hammerhead sharks. Communism is such a fucking inherent stifling of your freedom that you're not allowed to leave, or even so much as dissent. And black people, I love y'all. I'm not whatever the left would say, fascist, racist, whatever. I'm trying to look out for your best interest here. Black people, you would be the most miserable and suffer the most under communism. And here's why black folks need to get away from the left and how communism will be worse for them than anyone. Number one, no bling. Every time I come around your city, no bling. What? No pinky ring? What about 50? The first way blacks will suffer more than anyone else is that they won't be able to purchase items for material status or stand out above anyone in social status. Yes, the white Marxists are also interested in this sort of social capital. A lot of white people, a lot of Asian people, a lot of Jewish people, a lot of Indian people, human behaviors are human behaviors. But speaking specifically for the Negroid, no, that's not the N-word, that's the racial nomenclature of the people of sub-Saharan Africa. This is quite literally embedded in their genome as a breeding strategy. The drive to stand out with personal excess as a suitable mate. Oh, did you think that it was hip-hop culture or some sort of magic dirt Americanism that caused black people to spend more money than anyone else on the planet, yet have a lower net worth because they buy depreciable shit like Air Jordans and gold grills and rims and gaming consoles and TVs and hair weave? Nope. In the European culture, the average breeding strategy hinges on competency. Yes, again, human behavior is human behavior, and we witness a lot of crossover, but on average, like IQ, the European breeding strategy is to stand out as more competent. European women are looking for men who can provide, again on average, a safe, stable home life and can be a competent father and protector. Remember, despite how popular mainstream media makes feminism look, it's fewer than 20% of women in the West who identify with this bullshit, and fewer still who buy into this hedonist mentality. Most are still looking for the same qualities in mates that they've been seeking for 10,000 years. Black women are out there, on average, competing for the men with the highest social status, not men who can provide or who will stick around to rear their children. Their breeding strategies are entirely different, thus giving rise to different cultures. This isn't just me saying this. This isn't some right-wing racist talking point. No one will tell you that this is the truth more so than other black people who literally call the white European drive for perfection and empiricism and competency white supremacy. They consider these things racist traits of our people. It's acting white. Why would they think that? Because they know and will tell you to their face that their people are more about social status and being seen as down, being seen as really black. This is what makes them attractive to mates, which is why you find that same guy with 7 kids from 7 baby mamas, and every baby mama 2 through 7 knew he had a kid and ran off on his first kid and his first old lady, yet he was king shit social status with his fly ass sneaks and sagging FUBUs.
In the case of 1-year-old Aaliyah, Bishop, you are the father.
Under communism, I hate to tell you, but you won't be able to stand out with that social status. You won't be able to buy those gold grills. You won't have enough money and no one produces them. You won't be able to get 22s on the Lex. Same thing. You won't be able to pick up the freshest $900 Indian conflict weave from the Koreans, ladies. You won't be able to buy that Rolex or Air Jordans. Communism will entirely slaughter 150,000 years of a breeding strategy that developed in your genome through the processes of evolution. When communists say equality, they don't mean under the law. That's a Western-only principle of democracy. In fact, the law, quote unquote, under communism is whatever the dictator decides, as you are a subject of the state as the proletariat. What they mean is that every single person living under communism has to wear the same shitty boots.
Okay, that's where you got them diehards right there. Hey, these Timbs.
Shit, yeah, they Timbs, man. I can see the tree on the side of.
No Timbs. Sorry, lads. You won't even be able to eat what you want. Under this supposedly oppressive capitalist system of systemic injustice, the poorest blacks on welfare receive around $800 a month on EBT through the SNAP program, with which they can buy whatever the hell they want to buy. Under communism, this doesn't happen. It's government cheese and dry cornbread.
Maybe I ought to eat your cornbread.
Oh, motherfucker, you can't have my cornbread. That's for damn sure. Because if you try to take my cornbread, part 2 of my killing spree gonna begin up in here on your ass right now.
The myth universities and media push on you is that you'll all get what you have now and more, and it's all for free. But the reality is that you line up for bread rations.
You know, it's funny, sometimes American journalists talk about how bad a country is because people are lining up for food. That's a good thing.
Yeah, you're gonna fucking hate communism. Numero dos, there's no dissent. Stalin and Mao made famous the idea that dissenters, dissidents, and demonstrators under communism were murdered, stacking up nearly 100 million. So let's put this example out there. Let's say that America is now truly a white supremacist, systemically racist nation. Let's pretend that Marxists are actually truthful and that there aren't actually twice as many whites killed by police every year. Let's pretend that black people don't make up 53% of all violent crime, yet only 24% of police-related deaths. Let's say blacks are being oppressed by the evil capitalist white supremacist government, and communism will solve it all. Okay, let's say all of that is true, just for the sake of argument. Now let's say that under a communist dictatorship, with the NKVD or whatever the fuck their police were called, a black person resists arrest or pulls a weapon and is killed by communist police forces. Under this horribly oppressive system we currently have, which is said to hold blacks down while engaging in a war on black and brown bodies, blacks are freely allowed not only to peaceably protest per their constitutional right, but also allowed to riot and loot and block traffic and invade private establishments. Yes, you know that this is the truth. America is so racist that blacks are allowed to pretty much do anything they fucking want.
Oh, dang. That's so racist.
Now, in a communist regime, what happens if blacks question the action of the Stasi? They're killed. Simple as. No debate needed on this. No apologetics can change this. If black people decide that for whatever reasons communism isn't treating them right, they will be murdered. They will be murdered if they protest against that treatment. Now, of course, this isn't black specific. Anyone will be murdered for dissenting. That's what equality means under communism. It's just that protesting and black people go together in America like peanut butter and jelly. It's what black folk do. They protest when they feel that an injustice has been committed against them, which is their right to do so, which, as long as it's peaceful, nobody cares and most people support. No, not under communism. You will be killed. So what happens when a black neighborhood falls into disarray and people protest for better housing? Murdered. What happens when all the dictatorial council is white and black people protest to have fair representation? Murdered. Black people, I ask you, what the hell are you going to do in a nation that doesn't allow you to even voice dissent? Bitch all you want about how awful America is, but look at the freedom you're allowed under our Constitution to protest and raise all holy hell whenever you feel you've been slighted. Yet you're supporting a political ideology that will literally kill you by the fucking millions if you dissent against it. Yeah, mate, you're gonna have a bad time.
Gonna have a bad time.
Number 3, no Mickey D's. I'm sorry. From Marxist professors and media to popular unabashed communist YouTubers, they all paint the same utopian picture of the poor never being hungry and there being a classless system because everyone's equal. What they leave out is that it's worse than a prison meal system, even without the commissary giving you weekly M&Ms and ramen noodles. You'll be eating the same things. I don't mean they'll force you to eat exactly the same meals, but there will only be an extremely limited number of options at the grocery store. Don't believe it? Well, just think of something super simple, like breakfast cereal. You have Frosted Flakes, Captain Crunch, Harambe Lives, Fruity Pebbles, and on and on.
You ain't got no honey nut.
What do you see?
Sorry, Omar, no Honey Nut Cheerios. Why? All the myriad options you see at the grocery store are all products of competition under capitalism. Rice Krispies shows up to compete with cornflakes and on ad infinitum. Under communism, the state owns all means of production and ultimately all businesses, so the only products you're going to find in the stores are those white packages with the black letters. It's true. I'm not being the least bit hyperbolic here. From Coke and Pepsi to Hungry Man at Boston Market to Cheetos and Doritos, every single option you have at the store for an item is a product of capitalism spurring competition. Once the state owns everything, there's only one bare minimum way of providing food. No brands, no competition, and thus no options. And we know McDonald's has been targeting an exclusively black market for 3 decades now. Just ask Calvin. And we know what that's also led to. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm fat as shit. But don't worry. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Arby's, KFC, etc. are all gone under communism. No joke. These are private enterprise, so they're not allowed. The state would take ownership, and why would they keep any of them open? Who can afford to buy? And if you have money to afford to buy, to eat out, then you are the bourgeoisie again and need to be stolen from or disappeared because it's a classless system. No more pizza delivery either, or Chinese food. No more fast food, period. Hell, no more restaurants. Think of all those snobbish fucking New York dipshit restaurateurs who screech about feeding the poor through communism. Now imagine they're not allowed to own a business. So what happens to the business? Again, everyone loves choosing what they want to eat. Burgers, pizza, etc. It's all about those options. But per capita, nobody eats out as much as black people. And nobody wants their chicken and biscuits like black folk.
I am eating some Popeye's chicken. Baby, when I tell you Popeyes will bless your soul, do you hear me? Hey, these biscuits is... Hey!
That's not an insult, it's a compliment. The reason we have so many options is that these options have a market base. They're privately owned, competing with one another, which provides people with options, provides people with jobs, and helps the American economy become the powerhouse of the fucking planet. Every single brand and choice disappear under communism. That's a fact.
Is that a fact? That's a fact.
No, the communists don't even argue against that shit. They just, in their dream world utopia, think that they're going to get to keep their shit. So, black folk, you still want to support the Democratic Party that openly attempts to turn your nation into a communist dictatorship? You really think it's worth a century of actual suffering to pretend you're suffering now under freedom? Number 4, no aspirations. I had about 12 left to do on this list, but it's running long and I don't want to make a 40-minute video when I barely get views as it is. So we'll stop at 4. You know, one of the biggest things young black kids look forward to in order to escape the ghetto or their mundane lives is fame. Basketball, football, baseball, acting, being a rapper, etc. Well, these things are all gone. All gone.
And it's gone.
I know people think I'm bullshitting because they've never heard their favorite Pinko podcaster say it. Mainstream media has never warned of it. But name me any famous actors, singers, or athletes, celebrities in general, under communism. You can't. The only people who became famous are actually infamous, and that's the Stasi generals and dictators and shit. So, black youth, you can't be like Mike, or shoot like Kobe, or fade away like LeBron's hairline. You can't smack a home run like Hammer and Hank Aaron. You can't do an end zone dance on TV. You cannot aspire to fame because there's no platform. Remember, a classless system means that everyone is forced, meaning compelled by force, by government, to be exactly equal in status. There's no doing well in college ball and signing a fat contract to buy Big Mama a Bentley. Hell, there's no more private colleges and no more college sports. Roll Tide? Nope, the fucking laundry detergent won't even exist, much less the private university. You can't have competition at all. None. So you cannot, by necessity of communism, have pro athletes at all. They wouldn't be allowed to make a penny more than anyone else in society. Every sporting franchise is owned privately in the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, etc. You think that the state's going to take ownership of these franchises just to entertain Americans? Why would they? There wouldn't be any profit and they wouldn't be able to maintain players or viewership. You couldn't bring fans into the stands to buy concessions because nobody would be able to afford them, and there wouldn't be competition to have concessions anyways. None of this shit exists under communism. Nothing. No competition, no choice, nothing. Nothing but the fact that you are looked over by a dictator. You become, for all intents and purposes, property of the state. There goes every streaming service and cable network too. What's your favorite TV show? It's gone. No Hulu, Netflix, Prime, Apple TV, or any movies or TV shows to go on them anyway. How does that make you feel?
How do you feel about the match?
Well, I think
It doesn't matter how you feel!
Under communism, there is no entertainment because entertainment is competition. No actors, no scriptwriters, no directors, no studios. Hell, there wouldn't even be devices to watch them on anyway. You think the state's going to make a bunch of different tablets and smartphones and big screen televisions? Hell no. Private industry and ownership make 100% of those things possible. These things are not allowed under communism. Name me one invention that came out of a communist dictatorship. Just one. Other than a weapon the state made to kill a bunch of people, that is. It doesn't exist. So, black people, just keep in mind when you go to vote for the Democrat, like you've been doing at a rate of 95% for 60 fucking years, this is one instance where you would truly be the most affected in this nation. If you keep supporting Marxism and allow communism in, you're going to have a miserable fucking life. And the worst part, you're trapped. There's no escaping. And the rest of the world is too pussy to show up to overthrow the communists. You know, there's a reason communists lie. Seriously, name me one time they've ever told the truth about anything. They'll tell you communism is equality, but lie by omission and leaving out the brutality of what equal actually means. They'll tell you that it's in your best interest, yet won't mention you'll be murdered for dissent until there's 3 million bodies stacked up before you even notice what's happening. Today's communists have a romanticized version of hell playing in their heads where they truly believe they're the revolutionary heroes atop noble white steeds galloping into battle against the evil bourgeoisie and the fascists, the evil fascists. Can't forget the fascists. Nazis in a communist head are the Joker to their Batman. And since they can't find any, they just invent them from thin air so everyone else who isn't a communist is thus a fascist. And every commie wants to be the hero of their little own LARPing world, believing they're needed and loved and admired by the elites.
You is kind, you is smart, you is important.
They believe that once communism gets here, they'll be special and be rewarded as part of the ruling class for helping usher it in, believing that they'll get to keep their devices and hipster gear and streaming, etc. The reality is that none of this will exist. The only reason people will be equal under communism is because we'd all be suffering and starving in a shithole together. Black folk, open your eyes and look at the only system on this planet that gives you what you want to have. If you think you don't have enough, compare it to what you'd have under communism.